One question our investors often ask is, how do I end a lease? Great question. A tenancy agreement is a contract between a landlord and tenant that states that a tenant agrees to pay rent to live in a rental unit. It is also called a lease. While not every contract may be on paper, we recommend that you have a formal agreement written up to protect both parties in case of any disputes. In fact, the Landlord and Tenant Board requires that a landlord provide a standard written lease to a tenant within 21 days of a request for one. These agreements are usually one of two types: a fixed-term lease or a non-fixed-term lease. A fixed-term lease states how much the rent is, how often it is paid, and when the contract ends. However, once the end date passes, the lease automatically becomes a non-fixed term, and previous agreement continues to hold. For example, if a fixed-term lease says a tenant will pay $2,500 a month for 2 years, the non-fixed term lease would still have the same terms after the end date. Of course, the landlord and tenant can discuss changes to the agreement, but the lease automatically continues on a month-to-month basis after the end date passes. When a fixed-term agreement ends, a tenant can provide notice to end the tenancy at any time. Again, while the agreement to end the tenancy can be verbal, it is best to have it written down in case of miscommunication or confusion. There are also some instances when a tenant may want to end their tenancy early. For example, if a landlord fails to fulfill their legal obligations for maintaining the property or respecting the tenant's right. Sometimes a tenant or their child could be in danger of abuse if they stay in the unit. A tenant can apply to the Landlord and Tenant Board to end their lease early in these cases. In other cases, a tenant can ask to transfer the tenancy agreement to someone else. They will need the landlord's permission, and a landlord cannot refuse without good reason. However, if a landlord refuses to allow the transfer, the tenant can give notice to end the tenancy early. Advance notice is usually required and can range between 28 and 60 days. Landlords who want to end a tenancy early will need to have a legal reason listed in the Residential Tenancies Act to apply for end to tenancy. The two types of reasons are for cause and no fault. For cause means that a tenant has done something or failed to do something they should have done. Examples include damaging the property, failing to pay rent, or committing a crime inside the unit. No fault means that the reason for ending the tenancy early has nothing to do with the tenant. For example, the unit may need major repairs or the landlord will be moving into the unit. In either case, the landlord must provide property notice in advance to end the tenancy. The minimum could be a few days or several months, depending on the reason. Additionally, if the tenant corrects their behavior, the notice to end a tenancy for cause will be void. When a tenant or landlord serves a notice to end the lease, the landlord can apply to the Landlord and Tenant Board for an official order to end the tenancy. If the tenant decides not to leave, the landlord can apply to the LTB to evict the tenant. The process for eviction requires filling out a form and attending a virtual or in-person hearing. Both the tenant and landlord will present their case to the LTB, and an adjudicator will decide on the eviction. Landlords should know that only the sheriff can physically remove the tenant from the unit for an eviction, even if the LTB grants the eviction order. So to end the tenancy, make sure you know when the lease term ends, have everything in writing, and know your rights. At GTA Homes, we want to ensure you're informed about what's happening in real estate. Thank you for watching another GTA Homes exclusive. Remember to subscribe and to visit us at gtahomes.com.